So thank you very much for the kind introduction, and also to being introduced to this very exciting meeting. I'm very grateful to the organizers and to my friends in China. And also, it's a fascinating experience to participate in this artificial intelligence supported translation. I had some technical issues with the bandwidth, so I couldn't follow everything, but it's a new world. So we're looking at an exciting future. So whenever you feel like asking questions, I'm not sure how you will be able to notify me, but please let me know if you have some questions. And I hope you will enjoy my, so to say, vision of the evolution of the technology transfer profession. In order to understand the evolution of the technology transfer profession, of course, you have to take a look at what the landscape of technology transfer looks like. And of course, being Swedish and a part of the Swedish system, but also part of the European system lately, it has, of course, an angle. We have the anticipation to become more and more global with the ATTP organization, where we hope to include as many national organizations and regional organizations as possible. But of course, we do have, and everybody has, the flavor of your own culture and your own university system and your own legal system. So the trends that I see, and I think this goes for a large portion of Europe and also to some extent the US, is that you go from more core technology transfer that was kind of initiated in the US in the 1980s and has been a very successful model, to utilization in a much wider scope. You also tend to see that we have moved away from the traditional licensing model to a more balanced portfolio, even in the true commercial part of utilization. It is still a much wider landscape that we see today. And that, of course, increased the set of tools, the set of opportunities, and the set of possibilities that we have. We also move away from more or less being focused on industrialization, changing of two laws of Norway, where the university contributed to a large part of that. Have a tendency to look much more on the challenge-driven side rather than the more tech-push side. So that means that we're walking towards the wider scope of the university being a part of the complete social picture of the nation. So in the social construction point of view, you actually see the universities as a resource for the nation, as a resource for the globe in solving their challenges for humanity. And of course, this means that we will move away from the more linear process as well. So this is just a picture I've borrowed from our friends in Australia, the national organization of the tech transfer offices in Australia, KCA. And this shows essentially what are the different challenges and different skills that is needed in the technology transfer process. So it's a lot more than just being a licensing expert. It's about culture, relationships, strategy, entrepreneurship, of course. It's about administration skills. It's about knowledge transformation, and it's a much larger variety of skills that we need. And this, of course, means that we need a different type of education as well. So the profession, so to say, has definitely widened. Looking at the evolution from a licensing to a more balanced portfolio, you can see the licensing contract being an early driver of technology transfer, in particular the Bayh-Dole Act in the US, followed up by the UK and Europe, essentially adopting that model. But now we see a much larger focus on different activities. And if you look at utilization, of course, non-commercial activities also matter, and they matter a lot, because if the university is actually going to be part of the complete picture, and utilization of research is one of the core missions of university, which is the standing point in Sweden and large part of Europe, then we definitely has to go beyond just being commercial. Having said that, of course, the commercial part is a large and very important part of this. But also the licensing part is no longer the only thing on our agenda. As you know, spin-off creation and startups, student activities that leads to new companies is a part of a larger portion of the technology transfer offices. And we also have the collaboration between industry and other actors, contract research, commissioned research, consultancy. And to paraphrase one of the TTO offices in Europe, they say essentially that they give rise to 5 new companies per year, 25 new licenses per year, and 350 new consultancy agreements per year. So where is the biggest impact of this? Of course, in the long term, the startups may be a very huge impact on the national economy if they are successful. But in the short term, of course, the consultancy matters more for the TTO office because that actually gives good connections to the faculty. So in that sense, those different perspectives serves different purposes for the technology transfer office, and they complete each other. And I think the TTO on the commercial side still needs to have some sort of balanced portfolio perspective here. So of course the longer term spin-off creation that might be fruitful in 10 years time needs to be balanced by the extreme short-term consultancy contracts, which is of course immediate payoff. And we also see that we serve a wider target group. For instance, humanities and social sciences becomes more and more important. And one favorite spin-off company from a smaller university in Sweden is where a professor in psychology used dance as a method to treat young females' risk of getting food disturbances when they either eat too little, anorectic behavior, or eat too much, which is a phrase that I don't know in English, I'm afraid. But she uses dance, and she started a company around this as a service where she can have dance as a therapy method. And this, of course, is no patent in the base for this company. It's much more of actually doing something which is extremely important, taking care of our young females. That's important for society. And of course, she had a good methodology for this. Impact in society becoming more and more, on even the research agenda. How do we actually prove that universities are actually doing the good things that we claim? And I would say, I certainly don't hesitate that research is important to society, but as a researcher, I would like to see the research evidence for this. And for me, we have to regard knowledge exchange or utilization as a core business of the university. So if research is creation of new knowledge, which is the one of the core businesses, then of course education is transferring new knowledge and also sometimes older knowledge to individuals, while utilization can be transferring new knowledge between organizations. And this is also to open up for of course, the exchange part, because it's also that the challenge-driven part of a research program means that you need to interact and actually take influences from society and from industry. And as I said before, we also have the challenge-driven perspective on research, where we have a part of solving the national or the global challenges. And this is, as you know, driven by the United Nations, but also reflected more and more heavily. In particular in Sweden, you see that it's getting more and more tricky to actually get your research funded unless you can start spelling out how you address those global targets. This mechanism for software, and the university should be in control of some sort of release. So they should be the quality guarantee before a software could emerge on the market. It's not far-fetched to speculate that we probably wouldn't have cell phones, PCs, etc. if this dream had come true. On the other hand, we might have not had Facebook and other more, less value contributing mechanisms to society. So the question is, of course, if 1 billion programmers, of course, some of low quality, and I would make the claim that they certainly outperforms a few 100,000 good ones. And innovation is sometimes hindered by the fact that we try to claim that we need a qualification process. And we need to keep this in mind when we develop our profession, because if we try to restrain it, we also hinder its evolution. So one key question or exclamation is, of course, that should we get out of the way of progress, or should we get more involved? And of course, I advocate that we should get more involved, but with this in retrospect and also being very aware of this. Technology transfer has been criticized heavily as long as it has been in existence. So, and the main reasons for critique heard in Sweden, in the US, in Europe, is of course that we prevent transfer. And the example above is one way of viewing this, of course. Another is that despite our efforts, do we actually make a difference? And this is, of course, a tricky one, because yes, we do make a difference, but it's extremely hard to prove that we make a difference. And here I would advocate that we actually start doing better and better research. How do we make impact in society? We have to ask the research family, so to say, to support us here. There's definitely a new landscape, and that puts new challenges on us and our profession. And my vision is that we have a scalability problem. In my vision, a university should, on the average, as a national average, have 1/3 of its budget allocated to utilization. So on the national average, it should be roughly 1/3 research, 1/3 education, and 1/3 utilization. I've been very impressed with the large technology transfer organization that you have set up in China. In Sweden and elsewhere in Europe, I would say 30, 40, 50 people, that is huge. Most universities has 10 or less people in the tech transfer office. if they should be in charge of 1/3 of the university economy, that doesn't make sense. So we have a scalability problem. We have also, if we look back, we can actually say, have we been successful or not? Well, we can't prove it, and that's a failure. But we're also being accused of being a preventer of transfer. And hence, we haven't really done our jobs in explaining to the world the funding, the management of the universities, that we actually do matter. So moving the needle. We need to show why we make a difference, right? And how we make a difference. If you look at the Occam razor principle, it's kind of states from a philosophical point of view that the simplest solution is always the best one. It's possibly not always true, but remarkably often you can actually argue that it is the case. So are we actually moving the needle? I think that's a fair question to ask, and we have to challenge ourselves here, because if we can prove to ourselves, we can show to the world. Well, unfortunately, as I said before, we can't really prove that research makes an impact in society, and they have so much more funding. So are we actually moving the needle? Statistically, probably not. On the other hand, I would claim that research role is to make an impact in society, and we're definitely a factor in that. So we should be able to more boldly claim that we're part of the equation, and we need starting finding proof of that. Unfortunately, the people with the money are always the ones that have the probability of best success. So hence, strategically, we need to start getting control of the funding. That's definitely very important for us. Scalability issue. This is, of course, related to our trying to carry the burden rather than teaching people how to do the work. I would say over the years, and I hear this from a lot of people, is that we're constantly frustrated because of focus on the wrong stuff. If we teach the colleagues in the faculty to do the work, we can actually have a few good things from this. Of course, we have somebody to share the blame for the mistakes. In the best of the world, it wouldn't be any mistakes, of course, but still we're being scrutinized all the time. So we sometimes have the vision of making too many mistakes, while instead it's a very good process that we do. We will have to step away from the incentives because it will be a shared burden or a shared challenge. And we can actually look forward instead to have great results, being facilitators of progress, rather than take the blame of something that we're not in control of anyway. So I sometimes challenge people to say that I see a tendency in Europe, the US, and also in Sweden, of course, that if research goes bad for a university on a larger scale, then the president will take the blame. If education goes bad, of course, the president takes the blame. But if technology transfer doesn't work, then they blame the technology transfer office. In this sense, it's not a core business of the university and the university management. So as I said before, and I'm wrapping up now, and I'm sorry for taking too much time, we need to scale, and the profession needs to scale with this. Of course, we know this, that we need to have good knowledge about the core activities and the core content of the transfer object or state aid rules. There's running novelty, and it is a different perspective because in the good old days they didn't have internet. Now everybody can find everything, and also with this very nice translation and possibility from different languages, there is nowhere to hide anymore. And in the good old days, professors in the good traditional school would rather do without us. Industry regards us being in interference. So I would say we need to take the lead instead of being this underdog. We shouldn't take the blame for utilization not being successful. The president of the university, of course, has to take that blame. So what do we need to do? We need definitely to be much more aware of a much bigger integrated part of the university. And of course, we also need to step away from the what do you say, the incentive part, where we can work with the researchers as the bright people as they are, and we can state that they're excellent in doing research, and they're excellent when they perform well, as they do when they publish. Of course, they can deal with the tricky parts of utilization as well, if we make them a part of the team. We need to improve the model. What is the model? Well, it hasn't been good enough, we can at least say that. In 30 years, we haven't been able to be a core business of the university. Maybe that's happening right now, but I think we need to make that happen as well. And I'm saying that we have used the wrong strategy. We think it's about impact, but it's really, unfortunately, about the money. We have to control the funding. So we need to get hold of the funding and to be able to dictate the rules. Then we can create impact. That's definitely a tricky one, as you know, because this is a struggle about research funding. But we need to take that challenge, and we need to go to the next level. I have an analogy for healthcare professionals where I see PRO professionals, that is us, as a part of the researchers, teachers, and utilizers. So if you look at the healthcare side, you have physicians, you have the nurses, and whatever. As a part of the physicians, you have the surgeons, you have the medicine people, etc., etc. And even the surgeons are divided into thorax surgeons, brain surgeons, etc., etc. So we need to find out what are the public research organization professional side of this. Well, researchers, teachers, and utilizers, that's a fairly simple first layer. And then the utilization, of course, divides up in tech transfer, the core part that we love and cherish, and the more commercial part. But then we have the outreach function, we have all kinds of other grants offices functions, and that's a part of the utilization scheme. And the tech transfer, of course, it can be a lot about licensing, a lot about R&D contracts, and we have specialists there, and they are a part of the profession, but it doesn't mean that the licensing specialist is a part of a licensing profession. I would say it's a part of the utilization profession. And when it comes to organizational shift, I would actually advocate that we have within the faculty the utilization functioning. So 1/3 of the economy means that we have to be integrated in the faculties. And we have the biology department, physics department, languages, economy, etc. Then of course there has to be utilizers working in the faculties. We definitely still have the utilization administration needs, where the tech transfer coordinating activities, the industrial liaison activities, but those are a support function in the same way as we have research support functions, education support functions for the other roles at the faculties of the university. So that essentially concludes what I wanted to say, and I hope you enjoyed it.
theater school with 4 main skills like music, dancing, acting, and orchestra. But it's not comparable to Chinese art. So that means we have this offer out of school running programs. So Julia, Markus, she will, after me, she will talk about the school system in Germany. And for art offers, we have only like offers out of school, and it's privately paid. You have to pay privately, because in school you have maybe 2 hours for music or 2 hours for art or 2 hours sports. That's it. For German people, it counts the content, rules, and to be like practical and to follow rules. But art, it disappeared in the last 50 years. So for this offers, you have to pay privately from the government. There's no so much offer, and that's why we have a look very, very close to China, because it's a very big role model for us to inspire us with beauty and old culture. So we try to open a Chinese center in Germany, and I hope with my friend Li Ji that we work together for about 7 years and work together very close. The problem is that even we have a look on China, that in Germany, maybe the advantage is that there is no pressure. So people can be really free if they do like dancing or drawing and acting. It's a very free way to behave. You have no pressure, you have no examinations, and that means that children, they can develop very freely in some way. And the children, they come into the center of the stage. So when we make theater pieces, then the children are really, really happy and free, and they express themselves, and as well we can hear their ideas and the thoughts they have. So it's not only from school system or ideological terms to put in their mind, it's more like then they come into the center and they can tell us about their world, what they want and what they want to be. So they can have a creative room to be more freely. And second is we are working very close with the French school, because as well the French people are very disciplined, and the children there, they are educated from very small. And in Germany, they start about with 6 years, they start to be educated. But in French school system, they start very early with about 3 years. So that's why our son visits a French school in Germany. And we really hope that we can work more closely together with French school and with Hubert for to make more exchange programs and to find a way over the French people. Because if from France somebody says it's good, then Germans will follow most of the time. Then they think it's good as well. So France and China, they are a really big role model for us because of the old culture, what I said already. And the cultural offers in France or in China, they are already in school system integrated. So the children, they are close, like we saw in the exhibition. They are educated from small on, like with art, monocrafts and things like this. But in Germany, is more the content. It's important, like to be a good, how to say, it's more like, even the school system is very democratic. At the end, at university, you became education more or less from your parents. That means your parents, they decide what is coming out of you, what you are learning. If you go to school system, you choose what you want. But at the end, the parents, they decide strictly if you work hard or not. So the discipline plays a big role in art in our school. So I think that both systems, like when we have a look on China, we see really disciplined children, and as well for German people, it's a little bit like they are frightened. They can't see how open and how vivid Chinese people are. They are more like maybe French people, like they like to the way to live. They are laughing a lot, and they talk and are very lively. And for Germans, it's not seeable. They just see the hard discipline way. So it's very important that we have a better communication in both cultures. And I think both systems, they can really have a big profit on both sides. They can inspire the one of the other. They can learn from each other. Maybe we can just learn more from China, but at the end, So this is, for example, our children from my theater group. You see it's quite free. They are not doing anything. But in front is my son, and he's learning Chinese. And for German people, it's a little bit like unusual that he's studying Chinese characters. And so he brings the learning of Chinese characters into the school, in his school. And everybody is like, wow, we have to learn this as well because he's learning this. And so they start to follow. So this was from a production with the smaller children. So it's very, for German relations, they are already very small, from 6 to 7 about. Was the last production we made. And this was one of the productions. So we have to make this on our own. We have to manufacture everything ourselves. There's not really money to realize projects. So, and as well, this was made of Frankenstein, a production in theater we made with younger people, and another production, another picture. So it's inspired from China as well, China aesthetics. So I think it's, yeah. So last I want to say is that I think it's really important that we should work on more having an exchange and good exchange, and to push down that German people are a little bit frightened of everything, but in fact they can be really great friends if they understand. And sometimes it's important that they come together, like to translate and to help together. But I think it will be an easy way to go if we can make them understand. So thank you very much. I'm finished.